Good afternoon, everyone. The hearing session is resumed. This is the review session, and this particular session is to consider the strategic flood risk assessment and the outstanding issues that there are between the authorities and the Environment Agency. This is an important background evidence document. It goes to the heart of the sustainability of the plan. There's a number of site allocations depend on this. Before we go, can everyone hear and see me okay?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes, I'm just saying that the strategic flood risk assessment is an important evidence document. Obviously, it goes to the heart of the sustainability, and we are hopeful that the outstanding issues between the authorities and the Environment Agency can be satisfactorily resolved, and so that's what we want to progress with. But we just like to point out at this stage that it is possible that we may need to schedule a further hearing session if necessary to consider the question of flood risk. However, we will consider that following today's session. Now, we have a number of questions which we'd like to go through first, if we may. And if I could just start with those, please. Firstly, I understand that the revised strategic flood risk assessment is a level 1 assessment. Could the authorities confirm that, please?
Thank you, Inspector. I've been joined this afternoon by my colleague Susanna Hope, who is part of the meeting, and I'll pass to her to answer the detailed questions if that's okay.
Okay, thank you.
Hello, Inspector. I can confirm that this is a level 1 SFRA.
Okay. Why was a level 2 SFRA not undertaken?
It wasn't felt that it was needed. It was felt that we could cover the details sufficiently with the level of information that we've got, that we can cover off the risks, and therefore a level 2 wasn't required.
Okay. And we'd just like to understand fully the involvement between the authorities and the Environment Agency, please. So in the preparation of the initial SFRA and the subsequent versions of the SFRA, could you just outline how the Environment Agency were involved in those stages, please?
I can pick that one up. We've engaged with the Environment Agency throughout preparation of the plan. In the early stages, we set out a SFRA statement, and then we've included SFRAs at the draft plan stage. We didn't undertake a sequential test until submission stage, because at that point we would know which sites were definitely coming forward and looking to propose within the plan itself, and that was made clear to the Environment Agency. That's why the submission plan SFRA is what includes the sequential test. They have been engaged throughout the process, and we've met with them more recently to discuss some of the concerns raised through the Regulation 19 consultation.
And has it been the same officers at the agency throughout?
It has been at the agency, yes. We have had change in personnel at Hampshire Services, though.
Could you summarise, please, what the Environment Agency, their latest in their latest letter dated 11th of October? Could you summarise just the matters that are outstanding, please?
Susanna, can I pass to you on this one? It's more of the technical nature.
Okay, my understanding is that the sequential test has been agreed and that the Environment Agency are happy with that, and that the only outstanding issue is that we didn't use the detailed modelling from the Lower Thames model in the SFRA to assess the 1 in 100 plus 25% climate change scenario.
And is there a question about because I think you've used the same methodology that was used in Hart District Council, and have the Environment Agency also got a question about whether that methodology is appropriate or whether it has been appropriately applied in the plan area?
My understanding is they do, but only because they say that there's this Lower Thames modelling that's available, and that's why they question why the Hart District Council methodology was used.
Okay. And how long has the Lower Thames modelling been available?
My understanding is it was produced earlier this year. However, we weren't informed of its existence. And obviously it was produced since the beginning, since the SFRA had already started.
Okay, so you'd started the assessment and then subsequently the modelling became available? Yeah.
That's correct.
Okay. And could you just clarify the climate change allowances that the Environment Agency require and those that have actually been used in the assessment?
The climate change allowance required is a 25% addition to peak flows in the 1 in 100 floodplain scenario. The climate change allowance that was used was a 25% increase in the 1 in 100 plus climate change flows.
Okay, that sounds to me pretty much the same. Yes.
It is the same, yes.
Okay. And could you describe the flood zone classification on each of the site allocations, please? Going through, starting with MA1, that's Horton Brook and Poyle Quarry Extension.
Stephanie, do you want to do this?
Sorry, the SFRA flood risk is set out in Appendix 2 of the submitted sites. So HA1 1, which is Hortonbrook. I've just realised we don't actually have the numbers associated within the table. But we've got, in order of it appears in the appendix, we've got Berkshire Manor Farm, which on the SFRA is 90% flood risk zone 1, 10% flood risk zone 3A. We've got Hortonbrook Quarry, which is 100% flood risk zone 1. The Compound, which is 100% flood risk zone 1. We've got Royal Quarry Extensions, which is 52% flood risk zone 1, 19% flood risk zone 2, and 29% flood risk zone 3. Then we've got Monkey Island Wharf, that's 80% flood risk zone 2, 20% flood risk zone 3A, and the area between Hortonbrook and Royal Quarry is 100% flood risk zone 1.
Okay. And we'd just like to understand the relationship between the SFRA and any SFRAs in the constituent authorities, please. Are there any SFRAs that have been done for the constituent authorities?
Yes, there has been as part of their plan making, and where those have been available, that information has been incorporated into the SFRA.
Which authorities are they for then, please?
I'm aware that we obviously had SFRA for the Windsor and Maidenhead plan, which is obviously at advanced stages currently, and that's where all the sites are located.
Okay, so just for Windsor and Maidenhead.
I believe all of the authorities are contacted. I know definitely we've had correspondence with Woking, who have recently done an update, but we've kept in close communication with each of the authorities and have received any updates to their SFRAs as they've been produced.
Okay, thank you. At the site level, can you be confident that your approach of using flood zone 2 would exceed flood zone 3 plus climate change?
Yes. Would I be allowed to show some maps I obtained from the Environment Agency today?
Yes.
Okay. So
I don't. I mean, the purpose of this session is a review session. It's just really to go through the next steps that are required. We don't really want to sort of open it up into a full discussion of the merits, but yes, I mean, please show the map.
Okay. So this is the modelling from the Lower Thames. This is the modelling that the Environment Agency said that they wanted us to use in the SFRA. The green area is the 1 in 100 plus 25% allowance for climate change, and the blue is the 1 in 1,000 extent. This covers the area where Monkey Island is. As you can see, the 1 in 1,000, so the flood zone 2 extent, the blue, is wider than the 1 in 100 plus 25% climate change allowance. And therefore, it does confirm that the approach that we've taken for using flood zone 2 as a conservative estimate for climate change is valid, because the flood zone 2 overestimates the impact of climate change at our sites.
Okay, thank you. And Miss Kidd, you've got your hand up.
Hello. Yes. I don't know when we'll be able to come in on any of these points, but I've just made a note about the point about the sequential test, and that we're not happy with it. I need to be clear. we don't apply or say that the sequential test has been passed. That's not our role. We're just saying that it looks like they've got enough information there. They've looked at the flood risk for those sites, and that information's there. But we are not applying the sequential test or saying that the sequential test is passed. Just to be clear, in that letter, that's not our role. Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, okay. I don't know if you want us to make comments on any of the other questions. Yeah.
Well, do you want to comment on anything that's been said so far? I don't really want to go into the merits, the technical merits. That's not for this session.
Okay. So you just like us to review the latest information that's been submitted.
Yeah, we just want to review the latest position, really.
Okay. Okay. Right.
I could just say a couple of points. Joe Marchant, who looks at flood risk in the Environment Agency. We were sent the map that has just been shown, and it does look as though the point's being addressed to our satisfaction. So we're not going to be relying on flood zone 2 for the climate change extent anymore as a proxy for the climate change extent anymore. So we, as Michelle says, would need time to review it, but it's really good that that detailed modeling's been obtained and fed into the SFRA.
Okay, thank you. And has this this approach of using flood zone 2, has that been used within any of the constituent authorities? Such as Windsor and Maidenhead?
I'm afraid I'm not aware of that. I'd have to check, sorry.
Okay, and with the sequential test, could the authority explain, please, how the sequential test has been undertaken? It refers to sort of the siting of, that sequential test within a site. So as regards the siting of buildings, but how has the sequential test been undertaken with respect to alternative sites?
Okay, so a list of sites were obtained that were being put forward. Sites that were obviously not going to be suitable were excluded. And then the other remaining sites were then looked at for all sources of flood risk. So we not only looked at the flood zones, we also looked at surface water, we looked at groundwater information, and we then ranked them by flood risk, and then included an assessment of whether they would be suitable to be, whether there's other planning constraints that would affect their viability.
Okay, and where is this information? Is this all contained within the strategic flood risk assessment, or is this within the site selection background documents?
That's all within the SFRA.
Okay. Okay, are there any other points on strategic flood risk assessment? Ms. Briggs.
Thank you. I was glad to have this session to kind of demonstrate that we want to use the best available information that we can, and the rapid work that my colleague has undertaken this morning, we're hopeful that it does not change the outcome of the SFRA, and our allocations can still stand. We're obviously very happy to do any additional work and to demonstrate that work that's been undertaken this morning and update the SFRA, but we don't feel it should be a problem of being able to take that forward.
Okay, so I think next we want to establish what actions will be taken from now. So I'd be grateful if you could outline what you see are the next steps to be taken and the likely timescales, please.
Yes, certainly, thank you. As I say, my colleague has been able to get a hold of the Lower Thames modelling that the Environment Agency have got. We also understand from the conversation she's had with others in the EA that there's a Colnbrook modelling as well that's relevant to the plan area, so we've got a hold of that information as well. So we are very happy to add a small section into the SFR explaining that data have been applied. As I say, from the information we've got to date, we don't think that changes the outcome of the SFRA, but very happy to add another section into the SFRA saying that data has been reviewed and what that's saying.
Okay, do you know, are you able to roughly estimate how long that's likely to take?
I've been looking at my colleague here. I would very much hope that we can turn that around very quickly, possibly by the end of the week, if Susanna's not looking too horrified. We would very much like to turn that around as quickly as possible, so we'll aim to do that, ideally to get something to the Environment Agency by the end of the week. Susanna.
Can I just clarify? We haven't actually got the modelling. What we got sent was a map of the modelling. So I haven't actually got the modelled extents. So we can put in a section that explains, using the map that we've got, and explains that the climate change, that our assumptions that we used in the SFRA are completely valid, that the flood zone 2 is a conservative estimate. That we can do quickly and easily by the end of the week. However, if it's required that we get hold of the modelling and add and update every single section on each site with what model extent they're in, that will take longer, and it will depend how quickly the Environment Agency can provide us with the actual modelled extents.
Well, I mean, it's obviously important that that the modelling is properly applied to the SFRA, and that so therefore, I mean, we leave this in your hands, but I mean, we're in no rush. We're in no rush for it. We'd rather get it right, even if that takes slightly longer. And so we're mindful of the council's intended timescale for publication, but nonetheless, this is an important matter that goes right to the soundness of the plan, and therefore we need to ensure that this strategic flood risk assessment it satisfies our questions as well as the Environment Agencies, and so I think we'd be looking for you to get hold of and apply that modelling to the assessment.
That's fine, thank you. And I must point out that the timings that I spoke about earlier were discussed with the authorities before we'd received the letter from the Environment Agency at 5:30 yesterday. So right. Being mindful of that, I'm sure everyone would want to make sure that things are done properly and in a timely manner. So very happy to look at readjusting our timings on that basis.
Okay, so on that basis, are you able to give a rough indication of how long do you think that would take? And we don't want to rush you on this.
If we put in a request to the Environment Agency the data straight away, Susanna, do you have an indication of how long that would take to apply?
I think the Environment Agency are the best people to answer how long it would take them to give us their model data.
That would usually go via our customer engagement team. I think they have a 3-week turnaround.
Well, if we said 5 weeks, would that be realistic?
Yes,
Yeah.
thank you.
Oh, and then excuse me, Rochelle Kidd here, Environment Agency.
Yes.
So is that 5 weeks for you to do the work, or is that including our response to come back and review it? Or
I think, well, I was thinking 3 weeks for you to provide the modelling data, and then
yes,
another 2 weeks for the authorities to finalise the SFRA.
right.
I mean,
And
it's
then,
just a suggestion.
yes.
We're open to your comments on that.
Oh yeah, I mean, if that can be done more quickly, then gathering the data, yes. But then once that's all produced and put in a document, then we'll need time to review that and come back with a response on that version of the SFRA. So if it's going to take 5 weeks to produce it, then
Right.
we'll might need another couple of weeks to comment on that. If you see what I mean, yes.
Miss Briggs.
We will act as quickly as we can as soon as we've got a hold of the data and turn it round. If as soon as we have the data, we will turn it round as quickly as possible. So hopefully within the 5 weeks. As you say, it's very much dependent on when that data is received, but we'll make the capacity available to process the data as soon as it's in and turn the SFRA around. So there shouldn't be any delays from our side of things. It'll be as soon as we can get it to the Environment Agency.
Okay, so does 5 weeks, does that allow sufficient time for the data to be received and then for you to revise the SFRA and then to discuss with the Environment Agency and the Environment Agency to respond? Or should the timescale be longer?
We, within 5 weeks, can receive the data, process it, and get a version of the SFRA to the Environment Agency within 5 weeks.
Okay, so okay, right. So 5 weeks to get it to the Environment Agency, and then probably a further 2 weeks beyond that.
Yes, most likely, yes.
Okay. Okay, are there any other points that we need to cover before we adjourn?
I believe that was the only outstanding matter.
Yeah. Okay, well, because this matter is still outstanding and we're awaiting the submission of this further information, we will adjourn the hearing. As I said before, there is a possibility that we may need to revisit it, but we're hopeful that this matter can be resolved. So the timescale is we'll set a date which would be 7 weeks from today. So just to check when that date is, that's the 30th of November. And by the 16th of November, that would be the deadline for the production of the revised SFRA, and then by the 30th of November for the Environment Agency's response.
That's understood.
Yeah. Okay,
Yes,
are there any
yes.
questions before we close then? Right. Okay. Well, thank you all very much, and we'd like to thank Stephanie for her efficient organisation of the hearings, and we'd like to thank all participants for your contributions. This hearing session is adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.